Hey there, I'm Jonny May and welcome to this lesson where I'm going to show you what I think are the 15 most important piano styles that you should know if you want to be a well-rounded and versatile pianist. So if you want to break out of the box of playing the same old styles and you want to expand your horizons as a pianist, this lesson is for you. All right, style number one is the classical style. This style was very popular during the 17 and 1800s. Check it out. Now, if you want to get a classical sound at the piano, well, obviously you could play a classical piece of music, but for many students, it is a lot of work to memorize a whole classical piece. And so if someone says, hey, can you play in the classical style? You can play this technique and get what I would call a pseudo-classical sound, or it might elicit feelings from the classical era. So how do you get this sound? Well, it is pretty simple. Starting with the left hand, we're going to use arpeggiated tenths. So you're going to take chords like A minor, and you're just going to spread it out. Okay? Then you're going to go to B diminished and spread it out like this. Okay? The other thing that I'll do is I'll use chord inversions. Like on my next chord, I play an A major, but I put the third on the bottom. Okay? In the right hand, I use arpeggiated triads. Basically, I'm just separating the notes of each chord. And then I have this upper melodic figure that moves. Da, 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 right? And so this will create a really beautiful sound if you want the classical sound. Style number two is ragtime. And this was popular during the 1890s through the 1910s, the turn of the century. Give it a listen. As the former Disneyland ragtime pianist, I personally love ragtime music. I think it is so fun to play. And what makes ragtime unique is starting with the left hand, the boom chick left hand, where we're jumping from the root up to the chord, okay? Very cool. And then in the right hand, we use what are called rag rolls. And you can use rag rolls on just about any melody, like Mary Had a Little Lamb. Style number three is the blues piano style. Check it out. This style was very popular in the 1900s, kind of around the time of ragtime. And what makes this style unique is starting with the left hand, we're using the blues shuffle. And there's lots of blues left hands, but this is a great one to start with. And then in the right hand, I'm using a lot of blues scale, but I'm sliding the scale. Okay? And then I'm doing another technique which I call turns. Okay, you hear that? That's a turn. And there's lots of cool blues techniques that you can use if you want to improvise. By the way, if you want to learn more styles just like these, check out our style learning tracks over at pianowithjonny.com. All you do is select your level. So I'm going to select beginner. You head down to styles, and then you can scroll down to study any one of these styles: blues, boogie woogie, contemporary and new age piano, Disney, funk and smooth jazz, gospel, holiday piano, a bunch of the styles that you're going to learn in this lesson. But with each of these learning tracks, we've put together full-length courses where you can really go deep on each style, learn how to improvise, how to play tunes, how to play chord progressions, and these are all tailored for your level. So we have beginner, intermediate, and advanced. I'll put a link to these below. Style number four is the stride style. This was popular in the 1910s through the 1930s. Check it out. What makes the stride style unique is a few things. First, in the left hand, we're doing a boom chick pattern to our chords, but we're using more colorful chords, okay? So instead of like an E flat, we're going to use an E flat with an add 2, okay? The other thing is we do these walking tenths, and you may have seen me do this. I went root, chord, fifth, chord. These are walking tenths, so I'm playing tenths up and back down, okay? In the right hand, I'm also using some very colorful chords, right? This is called an E flat with a 6, in the chord, and then I do ornaments. And there are different types of ornaments, but an ornament is basically a way to fill in the gaps. And in particular, I did a really cool run down the piano. Okay, that's called a whole tone run. I'm just playing whole steps down the piano, okay? Very common technique in the stride style. Style number 5 is the Boogie Woogie style, which was popular in the 1920s through the 1940s. Check it out. What makes Boogie Woogie so unique is the left hand, and you might notice I'm playing these big octaves up a C6 chord, okay? And these are swung eighth notes, okay? Very hip, very kind of authentic Boogie Woogie left hand. In the right hand, I'm playing rolls. See that? I'm rolling down the chord. And then here, I call these gospel connectors, okay? Really common in boogie. And the last thing is I do these sixth punches. Okay, you hear that at the end? It's a sixth chord, a C6, and I do a little punch on that. Very cool boogie sound. Style number 6 is the jazz swing style. This was popular during the 1930s and 1940s. Check it out. What makes the swing style unique starts with your left hand, and in swing music it's very common to have a walking bass that's swung, right? So this is a really common bass line, and then in my right hand I'm using what are called rootless chords. Okay? And rootless chords are chords that do not have a root. So when I go to my A chord, look at that. In my right hand, there's no A in it. Look at my next chord. Okay, my D chord, there's no D in my right hand, no root. And then on the G, I play it like this, okay? Again, no root in the right hand, rootless chords. Style number 7 is the beautiful jazz ballad style. This style was made popular in the 1940s and onward. Check it out. Now for this style, what I'm doing in my left hand is instead of playing ordinary chords like G major, I'm playing beautiful 10th chords like this, so it's really spread out, and then I go up to a rootless voicing chord, so there's no root in these chords. And then in my right hand, I'm playing a lot of cluster chords. Notice how in my right hand, a lot of the notes are really close to each other. See that? Look at this chord, beautiful A minor, it's a cluster, okay? And so this gives it this very warm, ambient sound, probably a sound you'd hear in a restaurant. Style number 8 is the gospel style, and this was made popular kind of around the 1920s and onward. Check it out. Now for this type of gospel style, the way that I like to play it, starting with the left hand, is I like to use kind of longer notes. Now when I performed it a second ago, I did keep the long notes down here, and I did some syncopated hits here on the top, but I do generally like the longer notes, and then I do what are called chromatic lead-ins. Hear that? These are chromatic notes which lead back into the F chord. And then in the right hand, I love this sound. These are called second inversion diatonic triads with slides. Basically, I'm taking the notes of the F Mixolydian scale and I'm playing them primarily in second inversions. So I have F major, G minor, I have this F7, and then I come back down. I'm going to change this one slightly and go to an F minor. It's a cool rub sound, and then I come down to E flat. So second inversion triads. And then I slide some of the notes. See that? And then second inversion chords. All right, style number 9 is the country style. This was made popular kind of around the 1940s through the 60s and onward. Check it out. This particular way of playing country music is synonymous with Floyd Kramer and has a really cool sound. Starting with my left hand, I'm simply outlining the notes of my triads, like C and then F, okay? Very basic. And then in my right hand, I'm doing what are called slip notes. You see that? So I'm slipping up from the 5th up to the 6th and back down. And then I slip up from the 2nd to the 3rd, and then you come back down, okay? So slip notes on the 5th and on the 2nd. Style number 10 is the rock style, and rock and roll has been popular since the 1950s. Check it out. Now, this particular style of rock music is synonymous with the tune Sweet Home Alabama, released in the 1970s, and it works really well for this kind of era of rock music. So what am I doing? In my left hand, I'm using primarily octaves. Okay? And you might notice there's a very strong backbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay? So I'm really emphasizing beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? The other thing is in my right hand, I'm not just playing ordinary chords like D major to C major. I'm doing what's called an add 2 chord. See that? I'm adding the 2. Right? It's not just an ordinary C major, it's a C add 2, okay? I also do what I call hard pops. Okay? Notice that some of the chords I hit especially hard, and that works really well in this style. And the last thing that I do is what I call slip note fills. And you may have noticed at the end I played this fill, which works really well, and it uses slip notes which come from the country style. And if you listen to pianists like Billy Joel and Elton John, they use this technique a lot. Style 11 is Bossa Nova, which was made popular in the 1950s and 1960s. Give it a listen. This is a beautiful Latin style of piano popularized by the legendary Bossa Nova musician Antonio Carlos Jobim. And so the way I like to play this style, in my left hand, I go root to rootless voicing. And so in this case, I'm playing an F major 7 with no root. So it's a rootless voicing, and then I break up the chord. That's the pattern. And then in my right hand, what I like to do is play a melody on a constant note, often the 7th or the 9th. So in this case, I'm playing the E as my melody note, and I'm kind of staying on that note. Okay, very beautiful. I do want to mention once again that you can learn styles like Bossa Nova, jazz swing, rock, funk, all of the styles that we cover in this lesson over at pianowithjonny.com, so be sure to check it out. All right, style number 12 is the R&B and Neo Soul styles. R&B started around the 1950s, Neo Soul started later, but to me they have a very similar sound and they're often mixed together, so check it out. So for this particular style of R&B and Neo Soul, the way I like to play it is that in the left hand, I use what I call thick fifths. And it's basically when you take your chord like C major and you play fifths up the piano, and it gives it just a nice thick texture. And then in my right hand, I'm gonna play melodic constants. So what that means is I'm gonna take a note like C and I'm gonna keep it constant while my left hand changes. Isn't that cool? Really, really nice. Also, in my right hand, I use chord clusters. So on the C, I got this cluster here. And then on the D flat, I got a cluster. See that? Really beautiful, okay? The last thing about this style is you can have lots of different chords, but typically in the Neo Soul style, you're gonna play more major and minor chords. So you're gonna have a lot of major, 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 minor, okay? You're gonna have usually less dominant chords. All right, style number 13 is also a mix of two other styles. This is the funk and smooth jazz styles. And funk was made popular in the 1960s. Smooth jazz came a little later, but to me they have a lot of similarities. So check it out. So in these two styles, what you'll often hear in the left hand are 16th notes. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And it's highly syncopated, meaning oftentimes you're accenting notes that are not on your main beats. In the right hand, oftentimes in these styles, you're gonna have a constant rhythm. Ta, 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 ta. Notice that the rhythm repeats for both measures in the right hand. And finally, in the right hand, we use a lot of extended and altered notes. Okay, notice this chord has a sharp 9 on it, and this chord has a sharp 9 and a flat 13 on it, okay? So really common to add notes to these chords. Style number 14 is the film music, or you could call it the cinematic style. And cinema music has been popular since the 1910s, but this particular style of film music, which is more piano driven, emerged around the 90s. Check it out. For this particular style, in my left hand, I'm arpeggiating big 10th chords like this, okay? So we're arpeggiating the 10th, and then what I like to do is a little hold on the 5th. You see that? A little hold, and then I do it on the D. There's my 10th, and a little hold on the A. In my right hand, I use a technique which I call interval rocking. I'm basically taking a big A minor chord, and I'm separating out the notes like this. And you can do this on any chord. Finally, style number 15 is the contemporary and new age piano styles. Once again, two different styles which sound very similar. These emerged around the 1980s and bring us all the way to the present. Check it out. This is a style of piano that you may have heard if you went to a spa or some relaxing place and you hear the beautiful piano music in the background. So for this particular style, what makes it unique starts with the left hand, and in the left hand we typically have what I call constant arpeggiation. That's where you take a chord and you keep moving through it by arpeggiating all of the notes in your left hand. Also, the chords tend to be very simple. They're simple two-note chords. You see this? It's A and E. And then it's a G and E. And then F is F and C, okay? Just two notes that usually repeat the notes. And then in the right hand, we have a descending melody. Notice that descending melody. We also use chord inversions. What chord is this? Well, actually, this chord is a C major 7, but I've got the G on the bottom, okay? And lastly, we do a lot of add 2 chords. Hear this chord? Beautiful chord. It's a C major, but I'm adding the 2 in there. I also have the 7th, so you can add that as well. Hey, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment. We read all of the comments, and also be sure to check out pianowithjonny.com. If you want to take your playing to the next level, we show you exactly what to practice. So be sure to check it out, and I'll see you in the next one.